This is Never Get Angry Again by David J. Lieberman. In this video, I'll be sharing with you the 7 most life-changing lessons I took away after reading this book, and I'll show them all on the screen here throughout the rest of the video. Also, there's a top secret advanced tip somewhere near the end of the video, so don't miss that. And don't worry, these aren't like cliche, surface level anger management tips like count to 10 or give yourself a timeout. This book goes so much more like in-depth into the deeper underlying issues that result in anger in the first place. So by resolving these issues, you're much more likely to be anger-free going forward. Now, imagine you have a small child who has a favorite toy that she plays with every day and even needs the toy to help her sleep at night. One day, as she's playing with the toy, it breaks. Suddenly, her whole world is shattered. Something that she's loved every minute of every day is now broken. She then responds by crying or becoming sad or angry. As a parent, would you cry or become sad or angry that the toy is broken? Highly unlikely, because you know that the broken toy is just a small bump in the many years that the child has ahead of her. Her toy is broken, yes, but she still has a roof over her head, food on the table every day, she's clothed and very much loved by you, her parents. There's something you have that your child doesn't, and that's perspective. This is what David Lieberman says about perspective. Perspective lies at the crux of our response and explains why we often feel irritated in the heat of the moment. After a few minutes, our anger subsides. A few hours later, we feel less angry, and in a few days, we wonder why we got so bothered in the first place. Time provides perspective, allowing us to see the situation with clarity. Likewise, as we grow and mature, we look back on our lives and realize that the summer camp we thought we must attend, the person we thought we must be friends with, or the office job we thought we must be offered are no longer musts. Without perspective, we are forever like a child with a broken toy. What I took away was time provides perspective. Which is why when we get upset, these typical anger management strategies ask us to take a step back and reflect. Will this matter in 1 year, 5 years, or even 10 years? 99% of the time, or at least majority of the time, it doesn't really matter. This is probably a very crude understanding of perspective because the author goes through much more detail in the book, but more on that coming up later. For now, here's another story. Since I was a kid, I've always been pretty skinny, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to eat whatever I want to eat. That all changed when I turned 28 years old a couple years ago, and my metabolism dropped off a cliff. But I still continued to eat whatever I wanted to eat, so never-ending desserts, lots of fast food, instant noodles, chips. Everything that was bad, I ate. Basically, I never made the responsible choice to lose weight. It got pretty bad, and I ended up gaining almost 10 kilograms. That's 22 pounds in less than a year. I'm also kind of short. I'm only 5'3", or about 1.6 meters tall, so the weight gain looked terrible. My face bloated up, my thighs got bigger, and my stomach ballooned. And naturally, my self-esteem plummeted. I hated the way I looked and also the way I behaved because I had absolutely no self-control. I also noticed that as I ate away my stress and my insecurities, my ego grew to compensate for these feelings of guilt and insecurity. I would think things like, hey, I'm trying to run my own business here. It's really stressful. You have no idea what I'm going through. And that's why I eat away my feelings. I just kept trying to feed my ego with justifications like these. My perspective narrowed. I was unable to see that this was just a transient period of my life, should I choose to view it that way, or that I had the complete control to curb my sweet addiction and eating habit. So whenever someone made comments about the way I eat or the way I look, I would naturally get angry. There was this particular photo I had taken of me a couple years back that for a while, my cousin who took this photo of me, whenever I saw her, she would show this photo to everyone and tell everyone how much weight I had put on, and that it all went to my face. I mean, it's not like it wasn't true, because my face did look pretty bloated. But it angered me every time, so much so that I started not wanting to meet up with her anymore. Now, just a few months ago actually, I started making more responsible decisions about my eating. I'm not on a very strict diet or anything, but I eat much less now than I used to, and I've also cut down on my sweet tooth addiction. I've since lost a little bit of weight, and although I'm far from where I used to be, my self-esteem has increased with every responsible choice I make. This shrank my ego, and in turn has widened my perspective. With this widened perspective, I recognize that this was a transient period of my life that I don't want to go back to, and that it's in the past. I'm now better that I know that, and I went through that. Occasionally, my cousin would still bring up the time when I was at my heaviest, but now surprisingly, I don't get angry anymore. I don't even get angry or upset when I see that photo anymore. These 2 cycles of how your choices affect whether you get angry is a rough guide of what David goes through in this book. So basically, the main thing you can do here is to increase your self-esteem and become anger-free, is to make responsible choices. At least that's what I took away from it. So what I'd recommend here is to take the time to reflect on the different areas of your life. Is there anything in your life that you are self-conscious about or have low self-esteem? For me right now, that's still a little bit of my weight. Until I go back to being the size that I used to be, I will try to make the responsible choice of eating less. Another insecurity I have is the fact that I don't make a lot of money doing this content creation thing. Whenever someone who has a stable office job talks about how they make 100k, 200k per year, it makes me feel small, insecure, sometimes envious and angry too. But I noticed that as I continue to make responsible choices, I remain disciplined and consistent, my business continues to grow, and my self-esteem grows with it. Here's what David says, and I thought that this was beautiful. Each circumstance we encounter is like a blank book until we write the script with our thoughts. For instance, when someone acts rudely towards us, it doesn't mean anything. This person's words or deeds cause us to feel bad about ourselves because of our self-image. What does his opinion really have to do with our self-worth? Nothing. But that's just what the ego does. It makes everything about us. The greater our self-esteem, the less quick we are to take offense, because when we love ourselves, A, we don't assume that someone's actions means he doesn't respect us, and B, even if we do come to that conclusion, we aren't angered because we don't need his respect in order to respect ourselves. If a person has 100% self-esteem, speaking theoretically, he would approach the entire world with love and respect. When conversing with a rude person, for example, he would be filled with empathy. His singular thought would be, how much pain must this person be in to treat someone as wonderful as me so poorly? How someone behaves towards you is reflection of his own feelings of self-worth and have nothing to do with your intrinsic worth, unless the ego, you, decide to make it about you. This is beautiful. How someone behaves towards you is reflection of his own feelings of self-worth and has nothing to do with your intrinsic worth. Please keep this in mind the next time someone knocks into you and doesn't apologize or cuts in front of you while you're driving. When I was younger, in an office job I hated, commuting and rushing 2 hours per day to and fro to my office job, I would get so mad when someone cut in front of me. Consciously, I would think, hey, what the hell are you doing? How dare you? Subconsciously, David is arguing that what you're thinking is this. You are treating me this way because there's something wrong with me. This is what happens when you have low self-esteem. As I get older, I no longer work at an office job anymore. I don't have to commute every day. I found myself with higher self-esteem. Now, whenever someone cuts in front of me in traffic, I just think, damn, he must be rushing to his office job. I remember what that felt like. To have a boss watching you like a hawk while you clock in and out and making sure you're at your desk on time. The exact same situation happens to me, but the script is rewritten by me, this time with empathy. And remember, people who do rude things out of anger or impatience or some other negative emotion are typically not happy with your lives. I'd recommend looking at them with more empathy rather than getting angry at them yourself. Now, beyond the responsible choices that we can make in our lives, what if we're suffering from trauma, tragedy, or abuse? The author says that all of us will suffer from self-esteem issues thanks to childhood, but it's not what you think. Even if these so-called perfect parents will have children who have imperfect self-esteem. The key question you need to ask yourself here is this: what kind of person would I be today if I were treated differently as a child? Whoever that person is who you really are. Take some time to reflect on this important question. Remember here that as a child, we had no concept of ego and self-worth, so whenever our parents got angry at us, we would internalize that as I am unworthy of his or her love. Now, however, as an adult, you know how ego and self-worth become anger. It is now your responsibility to make peace with the past. You are right now making a choice every moment of every day, whether to hold on to resentment or to let it go instead. So instead, we need to acknowledge and accept that some of life's most painful ordeals are beyond our understanding, much less our comprehension. There's this thing called the facial feedback hypothesis, which states that an incongruous expression or behavior forces the subconscious to recalibrate our feelings and beliefs in order to reconcile itself. So if you want to forgive someone, like one or both of your parents, take a physical action embodying forgiveness and do it. For example, if your parents are no longer alive, we can melt away some of the resentment by doing something in this person's memory, like giving to a charity, planting a tree, or bringing flowers to the grave. We need to do something, anything, to reinforce our desire to let go and to move on. Now imagine this scenario in your mind. You wake up at 7 a.m. every morning, put on a monkey suit, and head out of the house at 8. It takes an hour to commute to work every day, where you're stuck at a desk for 9 hours until 6 p.m. It takes an hour to get back home, after which dinner and chores take up the majority of your time. You have no time or energy for anything else, and your pot belly gets bigger by the day. Eventually, it takes just one traffic jam or one rude colleague before you lose your mind and have a total mental breakdown. For myself, I don't quite need to imagine this because this was my exact life just a few years ago, minus the total mental breakdown. My job took up 12 of my waking hours, including commuting. I had no space, time, or energy for anything else. I hated my own life, and small things like an extra task that came in right at the end of a workday will set me off and make me angry. David says this: we derive intense, unparalleled satisfaction from creative thought and action. They rivet our attention and unleash our individuality. We notice how much pleasure a small child receives from drawing a picture. We are driven to be unique, to express ourselves. We are all born with a specific purpose, unique to each one of us. To obtain the highest level of fulfillment, we must move toward that which our soul desires, which Maslow explains as self-transcendence. So the key question here that you need to ask yourself is this: what do I want out of life? David also provides 4 additional questions to help your thought process along. 1. What would you do if you could not fail? 2. What would you do if you didn't have the problems that you have? 3. What would you do if you had all the money that you ever needed? 4. What would you do if no one ever found out, or if everyone would find out? For me, right now, I'm pretty sure that being like a creative, like a content creator is what I would still want to do if I could not fail. If I didn't have the money problems, I would still continue doing it after I'm retired, and even if everyone found out. A few other things for you to think about here are these. Are you basing your life profession on someone else or something else, or is it something you truly want? For example, are you working a job because your parents asked you to do so? Or is it normal in society for you to get a white-collar 9-to-5 and that's the reason why you're doing it? Living in a way that contradicts our core values and soul-inspired passion drains us because it creates a division within us. People with conflicting goals worry more and get less done. They also have fewer positive emotions, more negative emotions, and more depression and anxiety. In the gap between where we are and where we want to be, we find instability, the breeding ground of anger. The more frustrated we feel with ourselves and in our lives, the more readily we become annoyed by others. Indeed, the person who is going nowhere in life often seems the most bothered by slow-moving traffic. That was exactly how I felt When I was working my corporate 9 to 6, I knew it wasn't what I wanted, but what society told me was the right thing to do. There was like a huge division inside of me, and honestly it kind of just like drained me of energy every single day. Today, as a content creator, I actually now work much longer hours than I ever did in my office job, but it actually energizes me and it makes me excited for every new day. I know it's cheesy to say this, but it really truly is the case right now. And because I think I found my purpose in life, I'm honestly a much less angry person and much less prone to being annoyed by like small little things throughout the day. Now, previously, so all the learning points we've gone through so far, I'll just quickly flash all 5 of them on the screen somewhere. This is about helping us as individuals boost our self-esteem to reduce the likelihood of our anger. But what if you've done all of that already? You now have like a great level of self-esteem, but now you have to talk or work with people with low self-esteem. That's where we get to life lesson number 6, how to communicate with impossible people. Have you ever had a colleague or coworker who thinks they're right all the time, they're arrogant when everyone else can see that they have no basis for being so, and they don't listen to anyone else? Yeah, I think all of us have had some sort of that same experience. Here's what David says. When dealing with someone like this, we need to muster up as much empathy as possible. Such a person is disconnected from his true self, the soul, and from others, and suffers from intense feelings of loneliness regardless of the crowd around him. His inability to connect with others is extremely painful and isolating. Moreover, despite what we may want to believe, this person probably doesn't wake up in the morning with the thought, how can I make your life miserable today? Hurt people hurt. Not because they're bad or anything, but because they are in pain. Though we all bear responsibility for our behavior, we must not assume a conscious intent in others. When I read this simple paragraph, it sort of like blew my mind, and I've been trying to apply this to my life as much as possible. Here's what we can learn from David when communicating with impossible or difficult people. He talks about this over a whopping 3 chapters, but I'll try my best to summarize the points that helped me the most. So, most importantly, understand that hurt people hurt. Angry people are angry. They are in pain, which causes them to act a certain way. Like what David says, we must not assume a conscious intent in others to hurt us or not listen to us or like act arrogant towards us. Then respond to these people with kindness and compassion, and here are a few tips that David gives on exactly how to do that. First, always begin with praise. Emphasize the person's many good qualities so that they know that you have a genuine appreciation for them, and they'll be more likely to hear your slightly more negative comments in a way that doesn't startle his ego into overdrive. For example, you're one of the most productive employees, and I love the way you work. I was just wondering if you could help me make these few changes to the report you've submitted to me. I'm only asking because I know you do a quick job of them. Second, if possible, share some of the responsibility. Instead of saying, how can you make such careless mistakes? Say something like, maybe I should have been more specific in giving instructions. Third, again, if possible, speak softly and politely instead of angrily and harshly. Being polite increases the chance of someone listening to you, while anger just activates the other person's ego. Fourth, criticize only after some time has already passed. In the moment, emotions are raging and anger is at an all-time high, so it won't be the best time to criticize. But remember what we learned in lesson 1? Time gives you perspective, which reduces the likelihood of anger. Now we come to the last section of the book, part 7, where David talks about the advanced psychological strategies to live anger-free. He gives us 8 concrete strategies here. Most of them are real nuggets of wisdom, but the simplest yet most helpful one that I use every day myself is the first one, the power of neuroplasticity. Let me tell you a story first. 2 years ago, I came into sudden forced ownership of a 14-year-old dog, and she's a pug. First of all, they're not known to be very intelligent dogs. Second, she can be extremely stubborn. And third, she's not the best trained dog I've ever seen. The first year I had her was just kind of terrible. She would wake me up in the middle of the night, typically between 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. because she was greedy and wanted her breakfast early in the morning. On other times, she would refuse to eat her food for some unknown reason, and every day she would pee and poop all over the house because she has not been toilet trained. I became a very angry person that first year because I wasn't sleeping well and I had so many chores to do because of her every day. And in my mind, at first, she was really cute, but after a few months later, every time I see her, I would feel really like angry and frustrated. I was so angry that after a few nights in a row of extremely disturbed sleep, I started like hurting myself and punching walls and stuff. I'm not gonna lie, not my finest moment. And then I discovered this book and the concept of facial feedback hypothesis and neuroplasticity. Facial feedback hypothesis states that an incongruous expression or behavior forces the subconscious to recalibrate our feelings and beliefs in order to reconcile itself. I went through this like a little earlier in this video, but here's a recap in case you don't remember it. So what I did was this. Every time I got angry at the dog for peeing all over the house, after cleaning up a bit and getting a little bit frustrated, I would like force myself to sit down with her and like just pet her. I noticed that by doing so, even though my brain was like angry at her, my behavior was so out of the like ordinary that in order to reconcile my actions and my mind, my brain had to force itself to become like less angry. On the other hand, whenever I was like venting about the dog to my friends or my partner, because my behavior was clearly showing anger, my brain just acted on that and just got like angrier and angrier. Overall, I felt like that was a very destructive way of coping. Basically, your brain follows your behavior, and that's the most crucial bit you need to know. For many years, psychologists encourage people to release the buildup of pressure by venting their anger. Yet after extensive research on the subject, it turns out that expressing anger is not only unproductive, but also destructive. When people vent their feelings aggressively, they often feel worse, pump up their blood pressure, and make themselves even angrier. Multiple experiments confirm that fits of rage are more likely to intensify anger. Now, where does neuroplasticity factor into this? Here's what David says. Let's say we get upset at someone who's rude to us. This bad behavior then gets reinforced in the brain, and the next time we encounter a similar situation, we will react even more strongly because the neural connection between rude people and our anger has already been like strengthened. So thankfully, you can use like neuroplasticity to your advantage here. Whenever you remain calm in the face of rudeness or insult or otherwise, this good behavior will also be reinforced in the brain, making it easier and easier to remain calm the more times you encounter a negative or unpleasant situation. And come to think of it, I haven't really been upset whenever my dog refuses to eat or makes a mess of the house. I just like let it go and clean up. The first time I did that, it was a little bit hard to do so, not gonna lie, but this like good behavior got reinforced in my brain. And every subsequent time has been easier and easier. I think the number of times I've been upset at her this year can be counted on like one hand. So that's a huge improvement. My life this year has been so much better and I'm thankful for it. Overall, here's a very quick summary of everything we went through in this video to help jog your memory a little bit because we went through quite a lot. 1. Understand the role of perspective. Time gives us perspective and distance from the event that made us angry, so use this to your advantage. 2. Boost your self-esteem by making good and responsible choices. 3. Remember that how someone behaves towards you is reflection of his own feelings of self-worth and have nothing to do with your intrinsic worth. 4. Make peace with your past by forgiving those who have hurt you, like your parents. Do something physical that forces your brain to be less angry. 5. Find the joy of living by living with purpose. This will help you love being alive. 6. Learn how to communicate with impossible people by understanding that they have no intention of hurting us and treat them with kindness and compassion. 7. Use neuroplasticity to your advantage. So that's by forcing your angry brain to reconcile your good physical behavior and literally rewiring your brain to become less angry. The first 5 points gives you enough info to work on yourself. So that's your past, your job, and your daily habits, and so on. The next point, so point 6, is dealing with others, and point 7 is an advanced strategy of using biology and science to your advantage. Overall, this should give you enough info to get the ball rolling like today. Though if you want a heck lot more details, this book is a really great and enlightening read. Speaking of which, this is about the time my dog's gonna pee all over the house, so I gotta go. See you in the next one.